Hi everyone, and welcome to the next in our series of Green Talks. I'm Ed Northam. I lead the Green Investment Group business here in the UK and Europe. And today I'm really pleased to be joined by Nikolaj, Harbo and Federica Gallina, both from Cero Generation. Hi both, thanks for joining me.
Hi Ed, good to see you again.
Good morning.
Morning. So we're here to talk about the launch of Cero Generation, our solar development business here in Europe. A really exciting time, I think, for all of us. On the 1st of February, we launched the business into the market under this exciting new brand of Cero. I guess taking a step back, this has been the culmination of really several years sort of work and effort for GIG. The solar market here in Europe is going through somewhat of a boom, and I think that's driven by the role that solar will play across Europe in the energy transition story. Currently about 150 gigawatts of solar capacity installed across Europe. That's expected to more than double through the period to 2030, so for the rest of the decade. The current expectation is that solar could represent about 60% of the generation mix in Europe by 2050. And most of this now being delivered on an unsubsidised model. So I guess with that market opportunity, we were particularly keen to ensure that we played a big role in delivering solar capacity as part of that transition. So a few years back, we set about the process of building a presence in European solar. And we've been putting together a development pipeline and a series of sort of key partnerships really to accelerate those activities. And all of that now has been consolidated under the Cero business, which we, as I said, launched into the market on the 1st of February. Nikolaj Harbo is the CEO of that business, and he's been with us for almost a couple of years now. So he's been a key part of this journey. Nikolaj, just to bring you into this conversation, exciting times for the business. We've launched it, with an 8 gigawatt pipeline with over 150 projects in various stages of development and with operations across 7 geographic sort of markets. So already a really big business in its own right, but keen to hear from you on what your vision is over the years ahead for the business and how you see it growing and developing.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks for that question. Basically, we are very excited about the launch of Cero, and we see a huge potential in growth. As you said, we have reached now 8 to 9 gigawatts of pipeline in various countries. We are mainly in the UK, Spain, Italy, France and Poland, but we want to go beyond those markets. We want to grow in the markets we're in now, but we also want to go to other markets. So we foresee a rapid growth. As you said, we have only been living, so to say, and doing this for 2 years, but with 8 gigawatt, we expect to accelerate that growth with the current organization we have to much more in the future.
Yeah. And interested in the role that you see the business playing through the project sort of life cycle. Obviously, we start with an extensive development pipeline, but I know the team and the capability within the team that you've created, has the capacity to take projects really through the entire life cycle, both from development, all the way through into operations. Talk to us about your plans there.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. So what we have been doing and what we are still in the process of doing is industrializing our company. So we have end-to-end knowledge about the value chain of the solar world and battery and storage world. So we will be able to develop, construct, operate and asset manage the assets we are going to develop over the next years and decades. So we will have deep expertise in operational issues like procurement, where we in Cero are the center of global procurement for solar panels and solar equipment across the group. And we have deep technical expertise to optimize the plants. And also, importantly, we have the financial expertise and the PPA capabilities of building the projects. It means that in a merchant market, we have all the needs to execute the projects. And that's why partners and local partners see us as a very good partner and wants to partner with us. And the reason for that is that we can combine the flexible capital with that skill set that makes, the project go from development into operation.
Yeah, no, it's a great story and a fantastic capability that you've put together there within the business. Bringing Federica in, I mentioned that the business is already active in 7 different markets. One of the really important ones is the Italian market that Federica leads. Federica, talk to us about the scale of activity we already have running and the plans to build that, in the years ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ed. As you and thank you for letting me focus on the Italian market. As you mentioned, there are certain targets to be met by 2030, and in Italy they are particularly challenging, considering that by 2030 we should have 71 gigawatt of PV plants installed, which means 50 gigawatt more than the current capacity. So the plan is extremely ambitious, especially if we consider that in 2020 only 1.5 gigawatt of new projects have been authorized. And the reason of the complexity of the Italian market is mainly represented by the length of the authorization process. According to the applicable legislation, the authorization process should take 90 days. In reality, PV plants takes on average 1.5 year, 1.5 year to be authorized. And why is that? One of the reasons is the big wave of projects that are being submitted to the authorities recently. Over the last month, almost 800 megawatt per month of new PV projects have been submitted to the authorities. 70% of those concentrated in 2 regions in Italy, which are Sicily and Apulia. In this respect, time of application is of paramount importance. And I can say that Cero is very well positioned in our effort to meet these targets. We started developing our pipeline in early 2019, and now we have more than 1 gigawatt of PV projects only under development, 800 megawatt of which are already under the assessment and scrutiny of the local authorities whilst we speak. So these numbers make Cero the 3rd operator in Italy in the development sector. Yeah.
So Sicily and Apulia, where a lot of our activities are concentrated, yeah. Lovely places to vacation, but also great markets to build and regions to build solar projects in. Tell me, it feels to me like we timed our entry to the Italian solar market about right. Timing is often, it's always very important. Sometimes it's actually critically important. Describe how that market has matured and how we've positioned our activities within the maturing of the market.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, yes, the time is fundamental, and the moment we enter into the market was fundamental. Early 2019, the market was not as crowded as it is now, so we managed to position our project well towards the authorities and in the development process. The second thing, and is the other strength, I guess, of Cero, is the way we approach the market, because we managed to understand during this process that there is another important element to be considered, that is the attitude, the approach of certain local entities, like the archaeology department or the environment and agricultural department, that tend to preserve the historical strengths of certain areas of the country. So when we approach these entities and when we define the design of our project, we do it taking into account the interest of the local communities. One example is the implementation of agrivoltaic solutions as much as possible. That is aimed at preserving the historical basis of the local economies and strengthen the economic fabric of the territory. So that's how we tend to maximize the level of success of our projects.
Yeah. So agrivoltaic being where we design and install a solar PV plant alongside the continuity of being able to use the land for agriculture as well, yeah?
Exactly, because over the years, but since 2080, due to the weaknesses of the agricultural world, farmers tend to sell out their lands to industrial players or financial players building PV plants, and so there was a tendency to abandon this activity, which is one of the bases of the Italian economy. So that's the concern of the local authorities, and that's the concern that we want to address, supporting the local communities, because otherwise they would simply abandon those sectors. We want to keep them alive in addition to our own mission.
Yeah. It's a great story, a great initiative. Just coming back to Nikolaj, we've talked about Italy as one of our core markets. Interested, just where to next, right? New markets or adding technology? Interested in sort of how you see that playing out.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. So what we are looking is in other, Southern European countries at the moment. We are looking at particularly markets like Greece. We are also looking at Eastern European markets to entry there, and looking for local partners and how to set it up. But we are also looking at, apart from the agrivoltaic, which Federica mentioned, we are looking at co-locate batteries to help the grid of the different markets. So we also have a lot of work and technology expertise in deploying, alongside our investments, a battery solution that helps, the local grid and also the system operators.
Yeah. No, the growth potential is quite substantial. It's a really exciting story. Listen, we might need to leave it there. Can I say thank you to both of you for joining me on today's Green Series talk. Appreciate you're extremely busy building a business, so you might need to get back to that. But thanks for taking the time to chat to us today, and thanks everyone for listening in. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed.